Every movie has random trivia. And here at Trivial Theater, I explore some of these movies and the random circumstances that make them the weird creations that we love. This week's movie offers big power in a little package. A tiny force that'll rock your world. 13 inches of pure dick. I mean brick. The character's name is Brick. Anyway, this is Dollman. If those titles and the follow-up sequence are anything to go by, we are in for a fucking epic time. Our first stop is the completely unique planet of Arturos, which, according to this handy graphic, is 10,000 light years from Earth. I imagine they have nothing in common with us. Stone walls, trench coats, chambered weapons with silencers. Man, this place is totally unique. And if that wasn't enough to convince you, their futuristic lit helmets will. Arturos' version of cops answer the call of an asshole threatening some moms and kids at a laundromat that's clearly seen better days. Like the bat signal, the absolute banger line,
"Headquarters, we got ourselves a big problem down here."
Calls in the big guns. In this case, an anti-hero badass cop who doesn't play by the rules, called Brick Bardo. He lets loose with the most 90s-ish of nonsensical 90s badass cop lines.
"I'm gonna use hot water for my whites, a cold wash and a warm rinse for my colors."
What are you talking about?
Laundry, Captain. This is where I do it.
And reminds us that cops do their best work while suspended. In case he wasn't badass enough, he uses the hostages' combined weight and some really edgy puns to take down the bad guys. Afterwards, he has a smackdown laid on him again.
"Disappointed you didn't get to kill anyone tonight, Bardo? You're through! You goddamn psycho!
With the addition of a practical tip.
And take off those sunglasses, it's night!"
He returns home to find an infestation of flunkies in his walls, which leads to him being kidnapped. This brings him face to, floating head? With an amazingly rendered, kinda cheap baddie. In the light of day, Brick finally reveals that despite the traditional anti-hero cop demeanor, his dress is incredibly non-traditional. Button-up shirt, high-waisted pants, and a sensible haircut. His firearm, however, is kinda badass, and we learn that the people of Arturos explode really, really easily. The floaty head dude escapes in a futuristic spaceship that will make you go, Brick follows, and they end up going through some kind of hole in the fabric of space and land on Earth, where the computer AI thing exposits like a champ.
"Your size relationships are altered. This planet's life forms are a ratio of 6 to 1 larger."
Or something. Luckily,
It's only a model.
that doesn't stop it from making a huge mess. Due to the energy bands they traveled through, or Earth's gravity, or something else that sounds spacey, both Brick and Floaty Head Guy are 13 inches and 2 inches tall respectively. We're treated to scenic 90s era Bronx, home to crack, robbery, and prostitution. Our main protagonist, Debbie, fights for safer streets against Braxton, a guy that just wants to watch the world burn. Both have chance encounters with beings from Arturos. Brick saves Debbie from gang members by blowing a massive hole in one of them. Braxton meets the floaty head guy, who offers
Something that will rip your dimension a new asshole.
Debbie in turn saves Brick, and Braxton smashes the floaty head guy. Debbie's kid thinks Brick is a toy and gets him good and shaken up. He returns the favor by blowing a roach, and then a whole bunch of gang members to Kingdom Come. This whole series of events leads to the apartment being redecorated in blood, and another banger of a line.
I'd love to see a 13-inch man.
Debbie gets kidnapped by a plaid gang in clearly not creepy vans. Luckily, Brick is on it, doing some pretty awesome miniature stunt work that includes jumping on and riding in a big ugly car, as well as fighting a rat. After we're treated to a lesson on how fuck can be used as a noun, verb, interjection, adjective, and adverb.
Fuck, man, the fucking setup is fucked up. The little fucker knows what kind of fucking shit is fucking waiting here to fuck him up. So let's get the fuck out of this fucking deal.
Brick manages to knock out a guy using an amazingly long rod. He takes on the whole gang in a firefight where these badass gang members scramble to hit a guy the size of a Barbie doll. Oh, and he takes out their artistically styled vans. Anyway, Braxton isn't looking so good, but he still has a bomb that will
Rip your dimension a new asshole.
And after losing an arm, Debbie defends him in the name of humanity. Braxton returns the favor by blowing the bomb. Luckily, its blast radius isn't the Dimension's asshole, and both Debbie and Brick survive. We get a Skywalker-level sunset moment, and one last badass cop who doesn't play by the rules pun.
Tell me size doesn't count.
Finally, credits roll with a 3-minute montage of the actor's best moments, and the fact that this movie had a rat wrangler. Where to start with Dollman? Well, in an age of Stallone and Schwarzenegger, Brick Bardo was an unconventional-looking antihero. I can appreciate the fact that he looks the part of a normal guy who's more than what he appears to be, as compared to a clearly muscle-bound guy that stands out in a crowd. If anything, Bardo harkens back to the likes of Charles Bronson in the Death Wish series. Brick Bardo was actually modeled after Clint Eastwood character Dirty Harry. The name itself appears in multiple Albert Payan movies, including 1989's Cyborg. Dollman also has some interesting connections, being followed by a crossover sequel called Dollman vs. Demonic Toys, which is also a sequel to 1992's Demonic Toys, as well as 1992's Bad Channels. Overall, I'm kind of middle of the road on this one. I love the concept, and there was a ton of scenes that offer crazy moments that you'll only find in a 90s era sci-fi movie, but the pacing continually took me out of the story. It seemed to have a bit of an identity crisis between weird, fun sci-fi and a gang violence awareness piece. There is a part of this movie that speaks to the problems of the time, and that context is important to telling the story. But it feels like two different movies in my mind. Brick does have a hand in taking out Braxton's gang, but there's something missing that connects everything. Stuff just happens, a guy explodes, and we move on. The two villains were another thing that left me kind of wanting. Sprugg, the floating head, was a solid opening villain, but he was smushed by Braxton, ideally saying he was more villainous. And feel free to insert menacing laugh here. But I never got that feeling. He just felt like a little man, pun intended, with a bomb that had no plans on what to do with said bomb. That could have been the point, but it really didn't come across that way to me. Now, having said this, Jackie Earle Haley, best known for Watchmen, Little Children, and 2010's Nightmare on Elm Street, was a ton of fun to watch. I will say, when Dollman worked, it really worked. The first 20 minutes on Artros were great. I wanted to know Brick's story, and I really wanted to know the story behind Sprugg. Like, the guy is just a head on a repulsor thing. The background of how he had his whole body blown off by Brick would have been interesting and full of explosions. Win-win in my book. The 90s wasn't really a time of backstories, but in this case, I think those tales would have been the better ones to tell. The last 30 minutes were great too. It was a knockdown, drag-out showdown between a gang of shitty people and one small dude with a really powerful gun. I guess my hopes for this one were a little bigger than the movie itself. Now, my nitpicks are really specific to my experience, and I would still say that Dollman is worth a look. It's a great piece of 90s low-budget sci-fi nostalgia for the over-the-top action and punny lines alone. Special thanks to Ken Tantino for the recommendation. He puts out retro gaming content that's always informative and just a shit ton of fun. You'll find a link to his channel in the description below. So what do you think? Suggestions for movies, trivial questions, comments, ratings, and a pair of sensible yet badass shades that I can wear at night would be appreciated. Thank you so very much for watching.